G'day, Professor Joseph Drew here. Some people seem fundamentally confused about what depreciation is, where it comes from. This includes, some mayors, as you will soon see, our national broadcaster, some local government ministers, and even a premier. In this video, I'll explain what the misinformation is, how to correct it, and why it is a problem. So I saw this article from the ABC online a few weeks ago. Haven't had a chance to do the video until now, and it really caught my attention because it's so similar to what I've been hearing from some, decision makers, including at conferences, which is quite a worry. So rates rising due to depreciation, says the ABC. And they're quoting a mayor in Queensland. He says depreciation is crippling local governments. Well, no, it's not. As you will find out, it's the consumption, the deterioration of those assets, and the decisions to build the assets in the first place many years ago that might be causing the problem. He then goes on to say, we don't benefit from it, depreciation, like businesses do. Well, that's not true. No one benefits from depreciation. It's a measure of the deterioration, the consumption of an asset. No one benefits from their assets being consumed. Businesses, it is true, get to claim it as a tax deduction, but it's not a benefit to anyone. Councils must adhere to an accounting standard, he says, that's not fit for purpose. Well, yes, it's correct, you must adhere to it because it's backed by federal government law. But it's an accounting standard. It's not just something that we invented in Australia to upset local government. It's part of the international financial reporting standards. Most of the OECDs and most countries and most of the developed world are using them. And the accounting standards are there for a very good reason, as we'll outline shortly. He then goes on to say, we're doing everything we can to find savings, great, and reduce waste, great. But ultimately, rates will need to go up to pay for depreciation. Now, rates will not be going up to pay for depreciation. Rates will be going up to balance the budget so that when these assets need to be renewed, we might have sufficient cash to do so. And I get comments and stories like I just read out from the ABC all the time, particularly when I'm talking to the community. And that's why it's a problem if our national broadcaster is reporting things really badly and not getting their facts straight. Surely there's an accountant they could have contacted somewhere to explain to them what depreciation is. In essence, depreciation is a real thing. It's a measure of the consumption of an asset over time. Now, in the days prior to depreciation, we used to expense the whole cost of constructing or buying an asset when we did so. So if you built a road that cost $1 million, that particular financial year, you would see an expense of $1 million. Under accrual accounting, what we do is we say that if that road is only expected to last, say, 10 years, instead of expensing the whole $1 million a year we built it, we will expense 1/10 of that every year. So $100,000 every year for 10 years still adds up to 100 million. Now that's a very simplified version of what happens. It's a little bit more complex than that. But the point here is that depreciation is not an evil thing. It's simply a different way of recording that expense. And it's better in a lot of respects because it gives you more information. It tells you about how that asset's being consumed over time, which is really important if you're planning for the future, if you're planning to be financially sustainable. Because if you have a balanced budget and you're prudently setting aside money in reserves, you will almost, not quite, but almost have enough money to replace these assets when it comes due if you're recording things correctly. Now, depreciation is a big thing for local governments. It's about 1/3 of the budget. Why? Well, local governments are very asset heavy. They're not like businesses that tend to have less assets, particularly if they're retail businesses. They're really, really heavy in assets. 85% of the roads in this nation are owned by local governments. Hence, they've got lots of assets. Those assets are worth a lot. Those assets are deteriorating. Hence, you've got large depreciation charges. But whether you like depreciation or not, It is a real thing, and your roads and your buildings and everything else is still going to be deteriorating and being consumed, whether you like the thing or not. We can't get away from it. The only thing you can do is think very carefully before you buy or purchase anything, because there's an ongoing expense associated with it. And the less you buy and purchase, the less depreciation you'll have in the future. As I said, it's backed up by law. In the top corner there, you can see a copy of the Australian Accounting Standards Board statement on this. This is not a bizarre Australian thing. This is something just about every developed country is doing, and there's a very good reason for it. As I said in the past, we had cash basis accounting. Say you didn't like depreciation like a premier and at least one local government minister doesn't, and there's several mayors, it seems, who don't like it. Say you wanted to get rid of it. You've still got to have an expense. It's called double entry bookkeeping. You can't have expenses, revenues without expenses. You've got to measure expenses. You can't just ignore them because you don't like it. And, the world has been pretty well convinced of the need for double entry bookkeeping since the 15th century. This is nothing new. So if you want to get rid of depreciation, fine, go back to cash basis accounting. But it's not going to make a difference to whether you have a surplus or deficit. And some of the plans, I know there's one state government that's talking about excluding depreciation from the calculation of surplus and deficit. Some of those plans like that are just plain dangerous, because people will get a distorted view of what their financial position is. It will encourage them to spend more. It will encourage communities to ask for more and to demand to pay less rates. And what's going to happen 5-10 years down the track? These assets are fully consumed, they're at the end of their life, and we won't have the money to replace them. And that's going to be a disaster. So things would look good for a while, but eventually we'd fall in a great big heap. Look, if you're one of the councils that's copying a lot because of the misinformation of our national broadcaster and others, I suggest you pop this video up on your website. That's what they're here for. I hope it helps you. We need to get on top of this. If we allow misinformation to fester, people get confused, people make bad decisions, and ultimately we end up with a lot of very angry residents. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.